welcome to the Backcountry PA podcast. You got Cody.
You got Ethan.
Nick, right off the bat, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners, to us, who you are and how you got into hunting, all that kind of good stuff?
Sure, yeah. My name is Nick Queen. All my socials are Lethal Nick. If you're going to follow any kind of YouTube, go to The Rise. I do a lot of the stuff on there. But I grew up hunting. My dad was into it. I got bit by the bug early, and then once you get into high school, you kind of just get away from it or what have you. And then I came back in, probably my early 20s, and then at that time I didn't even know what public ground was, and I didn't have any private ground, so I just started YouTube and stuff like that. Really wasn't a thing. I remember getting into Dan Infault, and then listening to him and starting to figure out the scouting game and the woodsmanship. And that's what I've fallen in love with the most. Is the cameras are great and all the technology we have. I think they're awesome tools, but it's something about, like I say, like hunting like an Indian and getting in there and figuring them out and finding tracks and scrapes. And okay, I got a picture of him. I know he's in there, so let's go play the game. So I made up with it like bad.
Yeah, dude. I've been following you for a while now, and it's cool to see, the work you put in, the self-filming, the buck, especially the buck you put down this year, like an absolute hammer of a buck.
Thanks, man.
Both of them are nice. Both buck are nice, but
yes, I agree.
We'll get into it.
There's an asterisk.
There's an asterisk to the butt. We'll get into that. But I mean,
the heartbreaker. That's what I'm going to name him.
The heartbreaker.
Yes.
Whoopsie.
Yeah. Put that as the title of the video. Whoopsie.
With that sound effect.
Yes.
Whoopsie.
Yeah. It hurts still.
Sorry. But man, I think, for me personally, like the more work you put in, the better you feel, especially when you put something like that down. Like it's like so rewarding. Like even if it's just like a doe or something in the area that you put down, like it's the work you put in, like you said, going back to your Indian roots and all that kind of stuff, and putting in all this hard work. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I like listening to old timers and stuff like that. And we were on the phone earlier, and I was telling you, like, I feel like that era is coming back, where you got guys that want to hunt like they're in the 80s and 70s, where you don't have the technology. The guys that were killing big bucks are the ones that were outworking everybody and were woodsmen, like through and through. And so I love that. That to me, it makes it so rewarding. Like I don't even know how to explain it to people.
It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Well, it's funny because like when I shot that buck or whatever, like I had to have a buddy come get a boat. I was by myself. Everybody's at work. It's like a Tuesday afternoon or morning, you know what I mean? And my buddy's dad was like, "You didn't think about that when you went in there and hunted him?" And I stopped and I was like, I didn't even cross my mind. Like, how am I going to get this deer? I never thought about it. Like, and that's the feeling that I think of, like once it's happened and the work starts and you're like, oh crap. But now, like, I feel super accomplished that I, was willing to go back maybe further than somebody else, or just figure out how to get in there better than somebody, or, you know what I mean? Like the public game's fun.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing I never thought about was like the planning part of like the end result.
Yeah, I'm horrible at it.
That was just like, what are we going to do if no one, would come out and help you? It's like, I never thought of, like, there's like when I didn't work where I am now, I worked like a second shift hours, and I would hunt, and it's like, oh, I got like an hour and I have to be at work. But yet if something came out, I would have shot it.
How you going to get to work?
How am I going to get to work? Like, hold on a second. Like, it never crossed my mind. No. Like, you just don't think about it until it actually happens.
Yeah.
That's when you're ate up.
Yeah. You're like, whoops.
Well, even this year when I shot that buck, couldn't recover him. Like I had the retrograde stand with me and the striker backpack, but yeah, I had nothing like quarter him up that far deep in the woods. It's like I would have been dragging him out. Now, if you never showed up, no one else would have showed up. Couldn't have got him out, because it's like that would have been a long drag. Like I would have eventually got him out, but like quartering him up back there would have been so much better than dragging him 6 miles out of the woods on a jet sled.
Yeah, even just taking the jet sled in by itself, that was a pain.
Yes, it was.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, that's one thing that for me is finding a tree and also preparing to quarter one up that far back in. Like,
what do you mean by finding a tree?
I never This year I found good spots, but I never really like picked out trees for certain areas.
I don't do that.
I never did it, but this year, like I'm like, I gotta do that because
Yeah. I mess that up a lot too.
Yeah.
And like you wind up regretting it. But I be honest, the only time I do regret it is when I plan on going in there in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
In the evening, I don't care. Like
No.
I'll be able to figure it out. But if I'm gonna go in there in the dark, I don't like it. Over this year and last, I've always done it. Like I just winged it and it worked, and I've gained confidence in that. But yeah, you're right. I've had to change that too this year. Scouting, like, oh, stop for a second.
Yep.
Like find a tree now. Like my big thing is how to kill a big buck on public is get in there without like them knowing you're there. Like that is numero uno, and that's coming in a different way than everybody else. Figuring out how everybody gets in there and then what the deer are going to do to that, and then figuring out some sort of sneaky path to get in there. And sometimes it's easier, but a lot of times it ain't.
Yeah.
So, but you get in there like that and you find the right tree. You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to get into that tree without bumping deer? How are you going to, like, we hunt a lot of water. So it's like I use the water to get to wherever I'm going and then pop in. Now it's usually thick. So how do I get that 50 yards off the water without being loud and coming up with some sort of like path to get to it?
And I imagine if it's really thick on the edges of that water, they might even bed along the edge of that water.
That's exactly where they bed.
Yeah.
I hunt water in the morning and then try to get between them, depending on the season, obviously. But I'm a huge get in the thicket, be in the bedding, and be as close to the bedding. Even if I'm on that evening movement, I'm still like on the edge, if not in the bedding area, still just on the side that I think they're going to come to the food or whatever.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I've been trying to do. Like I felt like I was like we talked about, like I felt like I was in the zone, I was in the area of like I knew where the bedding was, but I was just too far away from that bedding. It was like I should have been closer to the bedding because would have seen more, would have gotten to more action. Like even if you blow it out, like I've kind of gone into where it's like, you know, a deer's a deer. Like if I blow it out, I blow it out. Like I know deer are in there. I'll just hunt another deer on public. Like it's not that big a deal. Like it's
not that big of a deer.
Yeah, not that big of a deer. It is a pretty big deer.
Yeah.
But,
that's it. Yeah.
But let's get into your 2024 season, the lead up to it. Now I saw like I feel like it was like maybe right before November you started hunting.
Yep.
Is that normal for you?
No, but I farm too. So a lot of times, like I'll take off from the farmer, and the only time that I've ever done that is like when I'm like filming for someone else. So like going and filming stuff for like XOP, or like when I went to Colorado with Dan and stuff like that, like I'll take off the farm to go do that. But I mean, I like early season in October, but everybody's super gung ho here, and one or two will get shot. The bucks really shut down, and I hate the heat. So it's like if I'm gonna miss a part of season, then I'm okay with that part of me missing, usually just because of harvest. Yep. So that's kind of just where it laid up. We ended at harvest right around that time, and me and my buddy literally like 2 days later, like I had, you know, the kids for a weekend, and then I was like, all right, peace out. Like, and I've been gone ever since. I don't know how my wife does it, but she's a saint.
Our wives are a saint, pretty much. Like that's very true, dude.
Yep.
But so you didn't go out at all in October. Comes November.
We made a trip on a day that it rained really bad at the farm, and I went and put cell cams up at my private ground, or not cell cams, just regular trail cameras. We put up on my private ground, and we tried to get a food plot in last second because I wasn't there in September at all, or August, to try to get something like, you know, for that early fall. And that was it. That was the most amount of time that I spent in the woods from the October 1st, is our opener. And then, until I think it was October 28th. Like, so we drove fields and stuff in the summer, but that means nothing the last week of October.
And for all the listeners, you're out of Illinois. So yes. That October 1st is that like, no matter what it falls on, it's always October 1st?
Yep. Always the first. Yeah.
Why can't it be first?
I can't do that in PA. Like, why can't it be?
Does it have to be like the Monday or something for you guys?
Or the Saturday. It's always a Saturday.
Yeah, last year was like September 28th.
Yeah.
And then this year, well, 2020, I guess.
The 24-25 season
24-25.
was it October like 5th?
Yep.
Yeah, because that was just the
that
first
would suck
Saturday.
on a weekend where everyone's off and can be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so-
then can you hunt the next day? No. No,
Right.
you can't. 'Cause it's
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
PA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's interesting that it's always. I feel like other states are like that too, where it's automatically October
Whatever
1st
day it
or
is. Yeah.
September 1st, no matter what.
Yep.
Like just because I feel like for PA, obviously with Sunday, like they can't make it a date because if it falls on a Sunday, you can't hunt that day anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the reason, but like,
Who knows?
why not just pick a day? Pick October 1st. Just make it fine.
Make life a lot easier, I think.
Well, I like it because it lands on like a Tuesday, and if you can hunt, and most guys can't. So,
Right. And
but
that's-
most of my friends take the day off. It's like it's a holiday around here.
Yep. It's
Yeah.
opening day. I'm out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
always no matter what. I'm like, yep, time to go. Bye.
Yeah, that's a hard one when you're farming is
Mhm.
watching the sunrise in a tractor and not in a tree stand. It sucks.
I can
But-
imagine. And is there days you take the bow with you in the tractor?
No,
No.
it wouldn't even be what. No, because I stay out of the combine.
Oh, okay, good.
That's the worst job on the farm.
Is it?
Oh yeah, dude. What? Just you're going in circles all day.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
And it's not like you can doze off. Like, yes, they drive themselves for the most
Mhm.
part, but like you have to pay attention where that head's at. Like you
Okay.
get too low or too high, like you're missing stuff. And so the guys that I don't know, one of the guys that does it, he's an animal. Like 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day. He just smokes his cigars and takes him a piss every once in a while. And he's good. I'm like, there is no way, dude. I can barely sit in a tree stand for 2.5 hours. So there's no way.
Yeah, I'm all fidgety. I'm moving around. I'm in
Yep.
my saddle, like moving back and forth, like looking around.
I noticed
Position.
I stand a lot
Mm-hmm.
when I'm up in a tree. I don't sit.
I
Very
don't
often.
either.
Like every once in a while I will, but I'm standing most of the time, even up in a tree.
I'm like the amount of scouting that I do, like when I'm in the tree, like I'm expecting. Like that's kind of how I look at it. Like I'm not in this tree, kind of, or like to see. Like yes, like maybe he's in here. You know what I mean? But like in my head, I'm in the game. Like every time I put in the scouting because I can't sit in a tree if I don't do that. If I don't have scouting under my belt in this area, like confidence way down. And I'm sitting 30 minutes if I don't see a deer, I'm like, F it, I'll get down and here it'll come. And I'm like, like every time. So for me to have the confidence to sit there, like I have to do like a lot of scouting. So like I feel like a paranoid like crackhead up there. Like literally I'm just sitting up against the tree like I'm the same way. And then I'll sit down when my ankles hurt and then I stand back up and I'm right back and just scanning. So I feel that.
You don't do the hybrid thing with the saddle, or do you?
I do, but not in the way that most people do. So like I don't bring a tethered. I just run it as a lineman's belt, and it's pretty much like, so I'm running the last year's version of our saddle. So the Mondo, it's got the straps. And so I have it hooked up like a lineman's belt. And then a lot of times, like I'm just hooking up on my, like I'll just loop it around the tree and like a climbing harness does, like the Holiday, that product that XOP makes. I basically run it like that. Or if I do end up in a position where I need to run in a saddle, I'm running it like it's a lineman's belt, and it's just a comfortable way to do it so it doesn't pinch and stuff like that. And so I'm kind of strapped in that way. And then if something does come to a weak side, then I can just unstrap really quick. It's right on my hip and be ready. You know what I mean? Since it's a lineman's belt more than it is anything. So I do hybrid hunt, but very rarely do I find myself in a saddle position. I normally want to be in a tree stand position. That's what I prefer.
Yeah, see that's one thing that I've transitioned to is like pure hybrid, where it's like I run as a saddle and just have my knees against like the seat. Pretty much when my ankles do get tired, I just do that. Rest my feet up there, all that kind of like I just
sit like in the saddle position. Like I'll literally just like tree hug and sit like that and just take a nice little nap.
A little nap.
Yeah.
Hello, saddle hunters.
I've done it, like going out on public and being in there early, and like that's a big reason I started running it that way, is because I was like, I'm gonna run it as a tree stand. Like I don't like the saddle at all. And I just too much ropes, and for a long time I was a guy that didn't wear one, so like it took me a long time to even just get used to it. But that thing's so comfortable But in the morning, like that retrograde, sometimes if you get high, like it's daunting. Like it's really small. And so that little lineman's belt makes me feel so much more comfortable. And even if I'm sitting in a tree stand way, like if I'm there 30 minutes, an hour before daylight, which believe me, doesn't happen very often, but when it does, like, yeah, like I just strap in there, I put the seat down, I sit up against it, and I'll just hug the tree and fall asleep.
Yep.
Me a little nap ski.
I tried the Invader this year,
Mhm.
and I was like, man, this is small. Like when you said like the dauntingness of the retrograde, how high you get.
Yeah.
Like the Invader, I felt like, I think I did it out in Ohio. I was like, man, this is like small. Like I can't do this. So
Yeah.
then I went back to the retrograde because I like that bigger size like platform type thing.
It's
so
perfect for it.
Yeah, I didn't really feel like the dauntingness, but I'm probably like maybe 10, 12 feet high.
I don't get very high either.
Yeah.
I'm the same
That's
way.
about as high as I go.
I won't go smaller than the Cold World. I won't go smaller than that because I ran the
love
Cold
that
World
thing
this year,
too,
and I
though.
thought it was perfect. And I was like, nope, I won't
is.
go smaller than this.
I always tell people, like, if you're first getting into it and you can't choose between the two and you still want a hybrid hunt, that Cold World is the game.
Yeah.
Like, and then if you're like, hey man, like the only reason I like the retrograde over the Cold World is the packability coming in and out. It's just so small, and I'm not shitting you. Like I crawl through bullshit. And so to be able to do that retrograde is mint.
Yeah.
And that bigger platform just sometimes gets stuck on stuff. And so I like that retrograde. And so I don't mind the small, but all day sits, or like I'm not going very far, or like when I'm hunting with my buddies and want to, hey, here's another stand, like I just give them that and let them go ham with it. So I love that Cold World.
Yeah. They're not making them anymore. So
or the retrograde. But
Or
I think they're
retrograde.
coming out with something better. So
wink, wink.
yeah,
Hint, hint.
For all those listeners out there, wink, wink.
I'm pretty pumped.
So let's get
It's the only gear thing that I'm nerdy about is my tree
Yeah.
stand. I could care less about anything else.
I've gotten into that pretty hard. Like I've
I'm
gotten
still not
into the nerding out on mobile gear and all that kind of stuff. But so let's go back to leading into November. You said you scout pretty good. So let's lead up to the triple main beam buck that you got this year. So let's walk through that process of getting into position for him.
So that all started by a hapsake. Like they opened up some new public, so we knew guys weren't going back there. But then the piece that we ended up finding all the sign on, it's close to where they opened it up. So we realized that there's a bunch of pressure where they opened up, but the deer got pushed back into the normal spots. But I've hunted out there for years and didn't know you could hunt it. And like, so we talked to DNR and he's like, oh no, like there's a good one that gets shot out of there every year or so. So we just kind of went in there on a whim. And we took the first 3 days of our camping trip to just do nothing but scouting. Like it was hot, 80-degree weather. It was super windy. And so we're like, the wind is, you can't beat that to scout in because they can't hear you. You can bump deer. They don't know what happened. You can use the wind as your advantage and just stay out of their wind. And you can be super intrusive and not bugger anything. They're going to smell you later. But odds are like, you can still make it happen.
Yeah. And,
so
and that early too, like the most likely is going to rain before the season. So like,
yep. And it did. We had a huge rain coming that was bringing the cold front in it's like 2 days of wet or 2 days of hot weather with wind. And then the wind was going to shut off. A big rainstorm was coming in and it was going to get cold. So we were like, this is just on the last week of the season. Like we were going to kill one in my eyes. Like there's no way. And, so we sat it actually right after the rain. When the rain shut off, we went right into it. And it was me and my buddy. And my buddy actually sat where I ended up shooting my deer. And I was actually on the other side in the interior part of it. And we got skunked, like didn't see anything. And then the rainstorm kind of screwed our tent. So we had to pack up camp. And so we boogered out. I ended up hunting a bunch of private. And we didn't really go back to it. Like I hunted a couple different public pieces up where I was hunting late season. And then I was hunting my private ground pretty hard. And I had this target buck that I was watching at 400 yards across the field just every day. And I'm like, I'm done. Like, I hate not being able to just go over there and shoot that damn thing. It was making me so mad. Yeah. And so, I had a chance. I was in the game. Like, don't get me wrong. How my property works would have made it work. And I have pictures of him, so I know he's there. But when he's over there with does for 3 days, every day, just back and forth, you just watch him. And I'm like, I'm over it. So I got back and I did some scouting and didn't really know what I wanted to do. And that's when I called Tyler and I was like, dude, like I don't really I'm not a huge trail camera guy, but I'm not really getting any pictures of anything. And I had cell cameras put on like my private, one piece of private and one piece of public at this point, but they weren't producing anything. And I didn't really know what to do. I'm not a huge trail camera guy anyways. So I just like discouraged. And he was like, dude, like what's your gut say? And I'm like, dude, that sign that we found in late October, like it's the best sign that I found. There's big bucks. Just all this. I know how to get in there. I know how to get out of there. Everything just made sense. The wind direction. He's like, dude, just quit overthinking it then. Like, you know how to do it. If you go in there and you don't see something, odds are you'll see something you can make a move on, make the move, kill the deer. Like I've done that tons of times where you get in there early and you take, maybe 2 or 3 days to inch towards the action. And then, day 2 or evening 1, you're in it,
Yep.
And so I was like, you know what, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And it's just I don't really know how to describe it, but it's on a river unit and it's a big, I want to call it like an oxbow, but it's more of like a cove. And then in the bottom of that cove is a big CRP field. And there's a couple of them in there. And you can come in from the water side and walk all the way around it and keep the wind in your face, where there's like pretty easy trails to get in most of it. So like I kind of come just from a complete opposite direction, get down, walk the water edge and pop up in there. And, there's a big thicket on the top of it. And what I was thinking in the trails, you could see it they were just big J hooks that go back into this bedding area. And I'm like, at the end of the day, if I see him in the bedding, I can move into the bedding. If I see him in the bottoms, I can move to the bottoms, but I can kind of see this whole thing. And I've these honeysuckle thickets, every year, these bucks, does push them in there and they don't leave them. Like I've literally watched big bucks take off running after these does. They break that and they'll stop and they'll sit at the edge of that until that doe comes back and he'll go find her. But they don't leave it. They don't like it. And so my guess was I got to get as close to that thicket as possible, because if they're J hooking in here, this isn't getting done during the daylight. They're going to stay in this thicket and I might get a chance to shoot into the thicket. If not, then I need to, make a move. Well, this deer came from the bottoms, complete wide open, and just come straight up the hill at me, which is, I guess it could do that. So, so completely behind me, and I'm leaning up against a tree, and I just kind of looked, and he was 30 yards just walking straight for me. And I'm like, oh shit. And I seen the triple beam side and immediately knew, like, yep, shooter. Like, he looks mature, everything about him done. And so at that point, I try not to even look at the antlers. Not that I really get nervous, but it's just not a point trying to figure out. We'll figure out how many points he has, later. Or what he is or whatever, which screwed me up late season. So anyways,
oops.
Yeah, I gripped my bow, turn around, and I clicked the GoPro, and he caught me clicking the GoPro. And so I just kind of froze there for a second. We're just having a stare off, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't remember where I heard this from, but it was an old timer on like a Fred Bear kind of guy. But anyways, like when you're facing them, like you can actually draw into your chest, and they don't like really know what's going on. They just see movement. Yeah, some deer jumpy, so I just figured I'd try it, and he didn't move. And so I just put it on his chest and beamed him, and he went 100 yards and fell straight into the bottoms, and I couldn't believe it. I still had no idea what happened at that point.
Holy
wow.
It's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I had no idea that deer was that big. I had no idea. Like all the trail camera pictures that you see me post, those are all people that hunt out there, buddies of mine that have pictures of him. And they're like, hey man, like, good job. I've been hunting that deer for 2 years. I'm like, sorry, dude.
Like the fact that you were like in the moment you thought of that topic right there, where like just pull it straight back, like that would not be going through my mind at all. Like I'd be just like, oh, don't bust, that kind of stuff. Like, and you're just like, well, I heard this once. So
well, and like I've seen them do it, dude. Like you'll draw on them and they'll jump 10 feet and turn around like, what the hell? And something that I've learned this year, especially, a lot of times, like if you're in a spot that they are comfortable, obviously he was comfortable being that much in daylight. Like he had the wind pretty good. He had the wind almost in his face. If he would have made it 20 more yards underneath me, he'd have probably got my wind if I didn't have full thermals at that point. But anyways, they'll jump, and then there'll be 20 yards, and you can get a shot. And big bucks, there's 4 of them that are supposed to be on this wall that have screwed me over. And if I get a chance to shoot you, like, I'm not waiting for you to go perfectly broadside. Like, if you're quartering to me and that's the shot that God gives me, then I'm going to try to make that shot happen. I'm not going to take something unethical.
Right.
Like that I don't feel is unethical or that is out of line or anything like that. But like if you're 15 yards and you're a little bit quartering too, like I'm not waiting for you to get to here so you can get broadside. I'm shooting you there. Sorry. Like the moment you get one chance a lot of times with these big deer. And if you screw that chance up, it's over.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Because
you've seen them again. Yeah.
Learn really quick from any mistake or any situation they're in. They learn extremely quick from it. Like, the fact that you had no cameras in this area, you had really only the intel you had was from boots on the ground. Like that's
and that is the week. That last week of November, I don't care. Prove me wrong. The biggest deer move that like make big moves that time of year. I've talked to a couple of my buddies that send me pictures, and I'm 1.5 miles away from where they're getting pictures of him. And so like I kind of like they do make these big moves, and I feel like that's these big bucks, they breed the does in their area, and by the last week of November they're like can't stand it anymore, and so they're not worried about their home range. They got to go find does, and so they make that they'll go to places that they're comfortable with, and every big buck that I see do it does it fast. Like they're not moseying through like they normally do. Like they're here, they're there, they're just trying to get to that other thicket to feel safe, and they don't like being out in the open like that. And so that all compiled up with the sign that I seen in there, the bedding area, how it lined up with the wind, like kind of what I figured they would be doing is basically what he did. He did a little bit different than I thought, which I knew deer could come from the bottoms. I just didn't think that he was going to come from that close to me. I thought he'd be more like 20 yards in front of me. So
now when he came up, like, did you scout that where he came from? You scouted that, I'm guessing, too?
We did because like basically I had to walk past some of that to get to where I ended up hunting on the other side when me and my buddy both hunted in there. I honestly figured they'd be in the thicket more than they would come from the bottoms, but I know they bed in the bottoms, especially when it's hot. They'll get down there and it cools off, whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, when I went to go retrieve him, I scouted down there the edge of basically where the bottoms meets like the grass, and there's scrapes all down it. So they're using it. Yeah. So I'm guessing it's probably what he did. Probably hit one of those scrapes and then just straight up at me.
Was there any like faint trails coming up out of that you were?
Yeah.
That he was kind of on too.
Yeah, okay. And like I didn't know when I went in there that they were that specific. But there was a bunch of them, so it was kind of which one do you pick? Really, I tried to get where I thought the furthest one was away, but there was a big rub behind me in the trail that goes up to that rub, so they could have easily like came completely downwind of me. I knew that was a threat, but it was we had like 27 degrees, barely. Just a slight breeze. We had the thermals in my favor. And I'm a freak about the wind, but I don't play the wind for me. I play the wind for what's going to make them feel comfortable. And so that's, to me, if I get busted, it happens because sometimes deer do deer shit. So,
That's one thing that I've kind of been taking into account is like, you don't want to play the wind that's good for you because that's not going to work.
You can sometimes.
You can, but like it has to be like that perfect quartering to wind that the deer thinks he has the right wind at that moment, right? But like that's one thing I gotta switch my mind. Like, okay, this wind doesn't have to be right for me; it has to be right for them in this area.
The only real thing that I feel like it has to be right 100% of the time is coming into it.
Yes.
You have to use the wind to get to the spot. However you do that, you have to. But at the end of the day, like I'm going in there to get into a wind that I know very well. Like if he goes down this trail and takes 2 steps past me, it's over with.
And most of the time, if you play
chess,
wind,
baby.
Yeah, if you play that wind, you might, I'm sure, take the longer route in because it's like, okay, this wind I can't access from like the shorter way, so I got to access like the whole way around and come in this way.
Yeah. We did this year.
Yep.
I do a lot of like going to opposite parking lots. Like I'll go park in another parking lot and come in completely opposite direction. But I'm still hunting where everybody else is hunting, but I came in completely different. And a lot of the times, like if there is someone that comes in there, they bump them, or they see it and then they get up and they go to the back door, and that's where I'm at. That's how I hunted all late season.
So I know Illinois, it's like more flatter, like it's more of a flat area to hunt.
It's like hilly-ish,
little hilly-ish.
Yeah, not like mountains where y'all are at.
Yeah, no. So with the thermals, how does that work in that type of terrain?
The same way, just not as extreme.
Okay. All right.
I'm playing a lot of ditches. I use ditches. I use water. I use stuff like creeks. Like field ditches where they got a big waterway that goes through it. I use that to kind of keep my thermals in check, or it does the same thing on a hillside as it does there, just not as extreme.
Not as extreme.
No, you can't. It's hard to rely on it out here. I feel like it can do a lot of different things. It doesn't usually just fall straight down. Like I know, like in Colorado, one thing that I was shocked about is like hunting with some boys there that were like been doing it for years. I'm like, damn, that wind's like really strong. Like that's not the wind. I'm like, what? And I'm like, that's thermals. I'm like, holy shit. Like it brings a whole different perspective to it. So like that's how I play the thermals, is just ditches and creeks, and like it's a lot of like where I'm hunting is coves that come off of like lakes. And so it's hilly enough that you can kind of predict it. Just kind of same thing, be on hunt low in the evening and hunt high in the morning. And I hunt near the water a lot in the morning, and I push the wind almost to the water. The deer seem to really like that. It's just like an oxbow, if you would. They like to go bat down on an oxbow. And so they want that wind to them. And so I can use the water, whether I use a kayak or I use my buddy's got a John boat. We use that. The water is usually really low, so you can just get on the banks, and with some rubber boots, you can usually finagle your way in there. There's a couple spots I have to wear waders to get around, like deadfalls, and be able to do that. But it's usually what I try to do, at least, is be up against that water in the morning with the wind towards the water at some point. They do like it coming out of the cove though, but it just seems like they're harder to get to when they do that, because you can't really. Usually it's too thick up top to come through that direction, and to come from the water with that wind, like you got to beat them in there if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, so, I mean, I imagine, because like you said, the thermals aren't as strong out there. So sometimes the wind, depending, like if it's over a certain miles per hour, I imagine it's going to play more of a game than the thermals do at that point.
Yeah. And so like usually like our thermals, like especially in the mornings, are usually late.
Yeah.
So one of the lakes that I hunt on, it's actually heated through a power plant. And so I don't ever have to worry about you get up against that thing in the morning, it just sucks it. So I love it. Nice. It's so nice. But what it also does is it plays the wind gets really swirly, like because of it too. Like if you get too much wind and stuff like that. And then the morning thermals don't kick off till 8 or 9, depending on how. Like sometimes you don't even get them because it's just not like if it's a drowsy day, like you're not getting them. It doesn't matter. So the wind is, you got to play it. I milkweed. I preach it.
Yep.
Like
now you didn't know about this buck. How, when you put the arrow through him and all the emotion, like obviously you have the video out there, which is a great video.
Thanks, brother.
It was fantastic. What were the feelings? Like the feelings running through you was like it was there, and you just shot a huge buck on.
I was so down at that, not down, just unmotivated, burnout. I've been hunting my ass off. Like that, I've had all November to do whatever I want with hunting. Outside of being a dad and a husband, I'm full bore whitetail. And when days I'm with my family, I'm just a zombie. So I'm just so tired. I feel so bad. I make up for it, I promise. But during deer season, I get just as ran down as they do. I swear. Dude, it was just like, what did I do? And still, like, I didn't get the shot on camera, and so like I didn't know where I hit the deer. So there was still a little bit of unsettling at that point. It wasn't until I seen the blood, I was like, he gone. There ain't no way. And so dude, it was just finally like is how I felt. Like the last couple years for me hunting, like last year I didn't really get to hunt for myself. I was hunting for other people, which is cool. I great experience and learned from a lot of guys. It was a blast.
Yeah.
And then the year before, like I was just couldn't buy a break. Like just couldn't get on bucks. Like the bucks were outsmarting me. The last couple of years, I've just had really big encounters with really big deer and screwed it up or whatever. So it was just finally like that's how I felt. Like, oh my gosh, like just a huge weight off my shoulders because I just start doubting yourself. You work that hard and you're not seeing the deer that you think you should be seeing. Like this is like, do I not know what a big buck track looks like then? Like, do I not know what these deer are doing this time of year? Like I start questioning my woodsmanship. And so honestly, like that shooting that deer for me was a big like, no, like this is, you know what I mean? Like, you know what you're doing. Like I need to, I have a hard time trusting myself. Like I want to, that's why I scout so much. Cause I feel like I don't know. Like, and so, which is a good place to be, I think. You don't have this abundance of law, this cockiness about you, I guess. And so, but now like after that all happening and everything and I put it together on other deer too, but that big of a deer. And like you said, no cams, no, just purely scouting and outworking other dudes and outworking what I have worked in the past and just trying to, best myself. Like, yeah, it was just a whirlwind of like just accomplishment, I guess. Like when I walked up on him, I was like, what did I like? Seeing him for the first time, I was like, oh, what? Like, because I had no idea he was like even when I shot him, I didn't know he had a triple beam.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea. I just thought it was a big 9-8 pointer or something crazy, but he just looked massive. And he like, did you see the picture that I posted on Instagram today? The thing looks pregnant. He's huge.
Yep.
Like, so.
Yeah, I noticed that's funny. Like a lot of hunters, we don't know how big the deer is until after we walk up. Like even
truly how big.
Yeah, because like even mine, because like we have antler restrictions here in Pennsylvania. You have to have where we hunt. You have to have 3 on a side, which includes the brow tine. I didn't once count any points on my buck. I just looked at him and was like, yes, he's a shooter. He's good. And then I walked. I was like, oh, okay, he's an 8 point. Like I didn't like I never counted. I just knew. But like you'd think like, oh, let me 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Yeah.
No.
I didn't. Sometimes you don't have time.
No.
Yeah. It's you look at like the one I shot. Like you look at him, automatically he's legal. But like you said, you never count points. Like I never found myself counting points on any buck that I shot. It was always like, okay,
that means you did it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I was like, he definitely looks like a shooter.
Yeah,
he's legal. I'm shooting him.
Like ready to go.
Right. Exactly. And like if I would have walked up on him and been 140, I'd have been just as pumped.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Easily. Like just the accomplishment of it and all that kind of stuff. So like the fact that it was, a stud, or whatever, I still like 140-inch deer, a stud, but like, it just makes it that much cooler. And you're super shocked. And I love, that's why I like the cell camera game and I like using the trail cameras and I think it does help. It helps me know that I'm hunting a deer that like I would shoot. I'm not just guessing on, a track. Like is about the only thing that I feel like you can honestly gauge a mature buck on. Like a rub, unless you just have. I've seen some giant rubs, then but still.
Yep.
Like I think that if it gets you tickled and you shoot it like that and you don't think about it, that's the way to go. Anyways,
that's the best way to go about it. So after that, you get him back. Sadly, he only did a European mount. For all the
he's up there,
right there.
But
I can pick him up and touch him and hold him whenever I want.
That's why I love the European mounts, man. Like
we talked about that with even with Tim Palmer.
Yeah, Tim Palmer.
We talked with the buck he shot. We said the same thing. Like, why didn't you get a shoulder mount for that thing? And he's like, I like holding, like physically, and like handing it to someone.
Yep.
To say, yo, check this out. It's just you could do that better with it.
So much cooler. Like it's like
it is,
and like it's
and if you have that shoulder mount, people aren't gonna go and grab it.
No,
they're not gonna pull it off. I don't care. I'd be like, yeah, you're welcome. There you go. But people aren't gonna. You're not gonna do. I'm not gonna walk in someone's house and pull their mount off the wall and be like, oh dang.
Yeah. Plus, it's like you don't with the actual skull. That's actually physically the deer. Yep. Like that's the head of the deer. Like when you do a shoulder mount, all you have is a cap,
a skull cap. Yeah.
So like you don't you have more of the deer. You have the actual teeth. You have like the physical look of the deer. Like I just find it better and cooler, honestly, than a shoulder mount. Now, don't get me wrong. If I get a monster buck, it's going to be a shoulder mount, maybe.
I think anything over 130 is worth mounting on a shoulder, like period.
Yeah.
Like, and 120 in some places.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I go out of state somewhere and shoot 115, 20-inch buck, just the fact that it's out of state. I'm like, yeah, shoulder mount that. I don't care.
Yep.
Like,
so I mean, Ethan's 6 when he got in Ohio, that should have been a shoulder mount because you got in out of state.
What am I
agree.
70-inch.
Maybe 70
with little nubs at the top.
Doesn't matter.
Should have got.
Hey, been a good bathroom buck.
Yeah. Hold your toilet paper.
Yeah, that was perfect. Put
got him.
One on each end.
Yeah. So after that,
Yep.
then you had I want to get to the buck that you shot, but before that, you had another encounter.
Oh yeah, you gotta bring that up.
We don't just talk about the positives here.
Hey, that's all right.
Yeah.
And that video went viral on TikTok. It's got like 90,000 views or something stupid. It's like, God, of course. Like,
right.
Yeah. So that one was a place that I just have habitual, actually very, very bad memories of that spot. But the 3 different times that I've went in there, cameras messed up. I didn't get the buck that I was shooting, and both of them were, I mean, you could almost put them next to each other. They're identical, like 135, 145-inch 8-9 pointers. And in 2020, I shot a high single lunged one, and we never found him. And my camera, like every 30 minutes, some of those cameras will do like it stops recording. I was talking to the camera, deer showed up. I turn around, I start filming this doe, and here come a buck. I turned the camera to put on the buck, and it quit recording. I didn't know, and I'm just filming him come up the hill, shoot him. Don't have any footage of it. I'm pretty sure I high single lunged him. Never found him. So the deer after this season, I went back to that spot, same wind. It's the same setup, actually, very, very similar to, only it's not off the lake. It's way further down the cove, like at the very back of the cove almost. But it kind of does the same thing. Big CRP ground on the private, and they come off of this private ground. They work up this hill, and then from like the base of the hill all the way to the other side of the hill, and it keeps going, is public. And so I kind of catch them coming off the private in the morning, and I let them get by me, and I get a shot, and they a lot of times run to the public. But I've learned that lesson, because the one we didn't find with the private, we got permission to go look, but he's like, it was November 1st, and he's like, we took our vacation. It's a lease, like you get one day. And so like I searched my ass off, but we never found a deer. And I felt bad because we're trampling through his, and he was kind enough to let me go in there. But so I just on a whim, I was like I felt, like I said, a weight was off my shoulders, and I was just trying to go find one and figure it out and try to kill one late season. I love late season is so much fun. And so I went into this spot, and whenever I shot that deer, we had to get it out on a boat. And I didn't have like a case or anything with me, so we took gear ties and tied it like on my boat. Well, I missed one. And so same thing, the deer that come underneath me, I don't have any footage of it, because when I flipped the recorder on, it was on manual mode. I went to automatic, and it quit recording. Didn't know it again. So I think I'm filming this deer, same spot. Think I'm filming this deer, and I'm not. And then he gets underneath me at 25 yards. I go to draw my bow and couldn't get it back. And that gear tie was tied onto the cam still. And you hear it in the video of me just plop. And it's funny on TikTok, everybody's like, you got pulling too much weight and buck fever. Why just stop him? You know, whatever. Like, I love the comments.
Oh my God.
But essentially, I just had a gear tie tied on the base of it. And I mean, I'd have been bucked out right there. I probably would have cried, because I bucked out for the first time this year, and I don't know what to do with myself. So doing it in November, I don't know what I would have done all December. Cry.
And for Illinois, because when we were out there, you had to put the bow in the bow case, because you can't transport it. So that's why you had the gear tie on, because you didn't have a case.
Yeah, I didn't have a case, and so like the rule is like a secured lock. Like there has to be an extra step, and so like we had, I don't remember what it was. He had a bow lock that we used, and then we just heard some gear ties. I'm like, I just want it. Like if we get pulled up at the boat launch and it's not there, like I just want them to be like, hey, we got gear ties, we got this. It's what we can do, and more than likely. So the lock thing, my buddy, that's all he does. He doesn't even carry his bow in a case. He just throws a lock on there.
Okay. Yeah.
That's legal here. So
I've seen them where they just go around the cam and just put on the locks. Like even they have like really, really small ones.
Yep.
That, like, I remember there was some article, some guy went to court for it, and like he went to court, they pulled out his bow, and he said, "There's no way that I could pull that bow back."
I know who you're talking about.
I forget who it was, but like they were like, "Okay,
It's Andre.
Is it?
It's Andre de Cristo.
Was it? Okay,
him and Cody got in trouble a long time ago, and it was DNR doing DNR shit.
Yep.
But yeah, when they went to court, he's like, "Yeah, pull the bow back." Oh, you can't. Sucks to suck. Like,
there's like it was like almost invisible lock in there that you can't pull back at all.
Yeah. And that's like I said, if anything, like I got video proof that it don't work. Like I promise.
It really works. It really works.
It wouldn't have pulled back.
So
that was a heartbreak.
From that, what's a lesson you're learning from that right there? Because I feel like all these failures, or not all these failures, but like all these mishaps that we have as hunters, we learn a lot from it. And like we're like, okay, really pay attention to this next time. Like what do you learn from that?
I had this like saying, like, and everyone's heard it, but don't get too high, don't get too low.
Yep.
And I have a hard time with that. Like I really do struggle. And so I was riding high, and after I shot him, it was 3 days later. It was the first time I was right back in the woods. I wasn't, to be quite honest, like I was just kind of hoping to go get in front of something and then start working my way back to the scouting, hunt, scout, like I like to do. And so I was just not paying attention, and I usually get up in the tree. I usually make sure my camera's good. I usually pull my bow back. Like I do all of that, and I just didn't. I don't want to say lazy, but I was just not really expecting much out of the situation, and I should have had my head in the game, and I didn't.
Yeah.
And so that's like, and it's hard as a camera guy, like, and that's the one thing like people struggle with is like, man, I gotta set my camera again, or I gotta film me getting my bow out again, or whatever, and so you get lazy about it, and then you shoot a deer and you're like, oh, I wish I would have had me walk into the tree, or I wish I would have had, like, I mean, I did it on the late season buck that I shot, like same thing. Like I started to get really irritated, and I was getting frustrated, and I wasn't running into the bucks that I wanted to, and I didn't have any of the B-roll that I wanted from truck to stand. And I got to figure out how to tell a story that way. And so same concept, just being in the game when you're out there. Like it's like I look at it not as a sport, but like I feel like it's like a professional athlete. Like you got to be prepared for that shit. And to me, it's like it was stupid on my part, and I laugh at it because it's funny. But in its seriousness, like I mean, what if that would have been a monster, like a 200-inch deer, and they're out there on our public?
Oh yeah.
So I could have easily just screwed that up. Like
you got to burn that spot now.
It's bad, isn't it?
You got to just burn it. Never.
Nah, dude, I'm trying to go kill one out of it.
Or I tell you what, if you
give it the big middle finger,
if you kill one out of that spot, never go back. Just end on a positive and never go back.
I won't.
I will.
I will. I've hunted those bottoms for years. There's big bucks in them every year.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard to hunt. That's why I like it.
Yep.
Like there's one trail in there that guys take, and the deer get used to it, and they stay there, and it's super thick. And I know how to get in and out without them like knowing I'm there. And
bottoms in general are just hard to hunt. Like that.
They suck.
It sucks so bad. Like even here in PA, well, with the mountains we have, it's like the bottoms are even worse because like, especially if there's water at the bottom, dude, it's so hard because you got to
ours have water in them almost always because it's normally the bottoms that I'm talking about is a cove, but it's just a really long cove, so it's just big creek bottom.
Yep.
And then on top, it's thick in the bottom, and then it'll get thick until the base, and then it'll open up with some oaks, and then it'll get thick on top, and then it's food.
Okay.
That's general setup almost everywhere here. Almost.
Also, you could do a neon gear tie instead of maybe a black one.
Yeah.
That's another.
They were fishing ones because it was his bow. It was the stuff that he had. I do have a neon yellow one that I should have put on there, but
probably much better option.
I just prefer not to have to use the bow.
I'm just messing with you. I'm just digging in.
Oh, it don't hurt my feelings at all. I took that one with a grain of salt. Shit happens.
But
plus that spot, like you said, it's haunted.
Yeah, it's
a cursed spot right there.
It's a cursed spot. And then you go from that to the next buck. So let's get into that.
So I'm actually editing that right now, so I got it in my head pretty good. I was hunting this piece that I started hunting kind of in the midst of me hunting private before I went back to where I shot my triple beam. And the spot I've hunted for many years, but there's one side of it that I just never really touched. I just was on bigger bucks other places. Well, I was going in there and I started going there and there was like 4 or 5 guys in the parking lot on the north side. There's 4 or 5 guys on the south side. There's 4 or 5 guys on the, I'm like, holy crap. And so I started noticing that there's one parking lot that just wasn't getting touched. So I was like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to go scout it. Went in scout, tons of buck sign. So I started hunting it. Had some really good hunts. I had like a little buck come in, chasing a doe, like right underneath me, grunting and snorting. It was really sick. I even almost drew back on him and realized he wasn't a shooter. And so it was a good hunt. I think I seen like 14 bucks there. So I threw a cell camera up and it was just dry, like nothing. So I moved the cell cam. On December 7th, I get 2 pictures of 2 giants. Like, one's an absolute unit of a 10-pointer, like 150, 60-inch 10-pointer. He's huge. And then the other one is probably 140-inch 8-pointer. And then there's this gnarly looking deer. I don't know if you've seen that video, but he's like a big forky on one side. He's got all this trash. Like, I posted him somewhere, I think, maybe just on my story.
I'll have to go back and look then.
Gnarly looking deer. And so I'm like, oh gosh, like finally I've been hunting this spot and like I finally get pictures of him.
Yeah.
So from then it was just scout hunt. I ended up going, like, it started getting late season, go back to the main piece of public and they all moved over there. And so it was just like I normally do, like find a bed, find, tracks, whatever, and then set up, see what happens. If nothing happens, maybe give it another sit, maybe an evening, morning, take a move. And I just I narrowed them down to 60 acres. And I was just bouncing around the 60 acres and just trying to get in front of them. And I kept getting in front of small bucks. But the picture, and they only got the one picture of those 2 bucks. And it was one night and that was it. And so, but the pictures I got with them, they were with other bucks. So, and I was seeing the other bucks they were with. So I'm like, I know it's just a matter of time before one of them's with them.
Yeah.
And so I'm just bouncing around. That leads me, basically did that all December. I don't really think I hunted the spot that I messed up on that buck a couple of times. But once I got pictures of those bucks, I'm like, okay, I know there's shooters here. I don't even care. It was after the gun season. So I know the Orange Army isn't going to kill them. So like, I just need to go try to find these deer. And that's all I did. It was 120 acres that I narrowed down into 60. And well, it's still bigger than that, but the 120 is what I was really hunting.
Yeah.
And then I was hunting like 160 acre piece of it. And then like when they moved back to the main part is when I kind of moved back over there. And it would have been last Thursday night. So January 1st.
I think so.
December 30th, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was New Year's Eve night. So the 31st. I finally get as close to this back part that I can. And I was kind of running a really bad wind, but I knew, like, I felt like I could get a shot before the deer got me, whatever. And I get back there and I had 7 bucks come in and not a single one of them was my shooter. Well, technically I think it was 8. So I had 3 forkies come through and they were all going to this back piece. And then probably 30 minutes later, here come, it was 5 bucks, but I think 4 of them came first. One of them got my wind and took off running back into the thicket. And then the other 4 didn't really know what happened. And so they just came right back. What was funny, I've never seen this. They wanted to get to this back part of this property so bad that they, like, one would come creep up, it'd get my wind and it would be like, oh shit, and then take off. And then the next buck would kind of like, what happened? And then it would do like the same thing. It would just get to my wind, take off running towards the thicket and go on its way. So it 1 buck, 2 buck, 3 buck, 4 buck, just right by me. So I'm like, I know 100% that these deer want to get to this back corner and that's where I need to be.
Yeah.
The crappy part was the next time that I could go in there, which would have been the second, I had a completely opposite wind. So in the morning, I thought, well, I'll just get in on the very backside, like to the water. I'm going to get on the backside of this where I've been hunting. I had those same small bucks come through it, a week or so before in there. So this time the big buck's going to be with them.
Yep.
So I get in there and it's 10 does. And 10 does come in, one spooks, takes off, and they all come right back in front of me. And so I'm at this point, like I'm ready to fill the freezer. So I draw back on one and I hit a tree limb and I backstrapped her. Like I got it on, it was perfect backstrap shot. Like I bumped her later that evening. She's perfectly fine. So I was just, like pretty upset. Like that would have been Thursday morning.
Okay.
Of last week.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty bummed about it. I blood trailed her again, going straight to that back corner. So I'm like, these deer want to be in this back corner. So it's like tonight, that's where I'm going to be. I'm going to sit back here. If I see her, I'm definitely going to get another shot at her. And then on the top of that, like all these bucks keep trying to get back here. Like I'm just screw the bedding area that I've been hunting in the back. Like they're back here. And boy, was I right. So, but I had backstrapped that deer. Was getting frustrated seeing all these small bucks, not seeing my shooter. Like hindsight 2020, I was stupid for me to be even upset. Like 7-8 bucks in one night on public. Like that's a good night. Yeah. Like, it's stupid that I was even upset. And so I get in the stand and it was super quiet. And like once I get up there and I could see, I hadn't seen this property or this part of the property, at least not from the angle that I was in. And it's like a jungle. But once you get above it, you can see through it completely. So it's very wide open, but very thick, like at the bottom. So once I got in the tree, I'm kind of looking around and I'm like, I didn't really like where I was. I only had a couple shooting lanes, had an idea what I thought they could do. So you're just kind of playing it in your head, like they're going to come from here, they could do this, and then as the wind was going to shift better for me the next couple of days. So I'm like in my head, like, okay, how do I get in here? Where do I need to be? And at this time, like my stand, it's 3:00. I'm just got my stand, my backpack's on, my bow's on the ground. And I go to turn around after, 5 minutes of him hawing, and I go to pull my bow up and I look down, I just see antlers. And I'm like, oh shit. And so I just grab my binos, I look down, and it's one of my big bucks. It's either the big 8-pointer or the big 10-pointer. At that point, I didn't care. I just knew one of them was a shooter 100%. Come to find out, I didn't know this till later. I was filming because I pulled my phone up and got some film of it. I was filming the big 10-pointer. So this is a 160-inch deer down there. And so I'm, seeing him from far away, but he had other bucks with him. And so 2 of them looked like they were shooters. So I was thinking like big 10, big 8, and then the rest of these little bucks, there's just 2 of them with them. So I'm only seeing 4 deer. Well, they're like 80 yards away, and I'm like, get my bow up real quick. I knock an arrow, and I'm trying to figure out like, do I have time to get my camera gear ready? Like at that point, I'm like, that's stupid. I just grabbed the GoPro. I threw it on my bino harness and just click record. Like, we're going to get what we get, boys. Like, and so they're kind of working away from me. So I pull out my phone and I start kind of filming them. And like, I had stopped my phone and literally put it, as soon as I put it up, one of them blew, and they're 100 yards away going up the hill away from me. And they come beelining to my tree. Well, what I didn't realize is there was actually 4 bucks in the timber with me. And then there was 4 bucks, including my bigger ones, on the edge of the timber that I was watching. And so when they come off running, I seen 4 bucks. The last one was an 8-pointer, and he was bigger than the rest of them. So I'm thinking that's my big 8-pointer. The first shot that I got at him, I took it. Just wham, whacked him. I then noticed there's other deer, and I see the big 10-pointer. So in my head, I'm even more jacked. Like, okay, the giant's going to live, which is sick, but I just shot a really big 8-pointer. And like, I don't have a big 8-pointer. So I was pumped. Like, he's probably, I don't know, 140s 8-pointer. So I'm jacked. So it's actually funny. I've been running this little buck, and he was like in front of the deer I shot, and he ran like 5 yards and looked at me. And like on the GoPro, I go, yeah, like at him. Like, I'm tired of seeing you, boy. Like, it was so funny. I got it all on film. So I'm jacked out of my mind at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I put in the work. I found these big bucks. I've been hunting them for literally a month, and finally get on them. Like, no way. Of course it happens to me chaotically where they just blow up because a coyote or something kicked them off the field. They come flying at me. And so when I walked up on my deer, it was not the 8-pointer I thought it was. And he was probably 30 inches smaller than, he might be 120 maybe.
Yeah.
And so immediately, like, I told my wife, like, to describe it, I felt like I went to the Super Bowl and I lost the kick. Like the field goal to win, and I missed it. And I was like, I'm still super accomplished. I had an awesome season. It's not a bad buck. I'm not disappointed in that at all. It was more that like I had a 160-inch deer that I just could have waited 30 seconds for, but I didn't. And hindsight 2020. I'm glad I did what I did, but still, because just the adrenaline and the excitement and the story behind it's really sick. But the giant lives on.
I mean, the only the positive part about one, I think a lot of people would have been extremely happy with that buck. I think you obviously were, but
yeah,
in your mind it's like I shot this buck, and you walk up, it's like, oh, yeah, it's like you almost.
I feel bad because I felt that way.
Right.
Like
exactly.
I should have way more respect for this animal,
Right.
and like he'll be if he would have lived, he'd have been a giant 8-pointer himself. So that's where I'm like, man, like, but I do feel very blessed at the end of the day. It was just if I like you said, you're expecting one thing, and then when I went back, because I still didn't know what buck I filmed, and so like at that point I'm looking like, well, what the hell did I see? And like I'm pinching my phone to try to zoom in. I'm like, oh, I seen that giant 10-pointer and put 1 and 2 together and kind of tried to figure out what actually happened. And I didn't have like film of everything, just GoPro footage really, and some shots on my phone. Then I was like, oh my gosh, I was literally, that's when I found out like I was in the game with that big 10-pointer.
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't get it.
I think that's normal though. Like you're not like the only one that would feel that way. Like I would feel that way. I think Ethan, you would feel that way. Like if you had a big buck and you're like, oh, I want to shoot that one coming in, and you accidentally shoot the one that you didn't know that was there, that's also legal.
Yeah.
You would walk up, be like you would be excited, but then also you'd be like,
wait a minute,
man, like that wasn't the buck I thought it was. Like I would be 100% the same way.
Yeah.
I'd be
hell, I do that with doe sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I get a group of doe. If I'm like, all right, give me like which one's the biggest?
Yep.
I said I want that one. And then if I don't get that one, it's just like, oh man, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But man, I wanted that one.
Like that one's bigger. Like that.
Yeah.
I think the doe is more comparable to anything because like when you have a group of doe in front of you, you're trying to pick out the biggest one. Like you're trying to do that. Like, so, then you shoot one and then they all run off and the even bigger one's like coming behind. It's like, oh man, like that's, I should have just waited for that bigger one.
Yep.
It's so relatable to every hunter.
Yeah. I think in the moment too, it's, you might, I want to say like disappointed, but like as it happens, but then later you look back and you're more appreciative of it. Cause like I read your post that you did about, shot the wrong buck. It's like, what? So I was like, that alone drew me in. I was like, okay, what do we have? And I started reading it. And I was like, okay, you put more respect on the buck after the fact and realize like,
it's
hey,
it's more than just the animal.
Yeah, like I shot one. I should be grateful, and you were.
Yeah.
It was just at the moment you felt the feelings that you did, and then.
Well, even if I would have walked away and not shot that deer, like that experience, like let's just say I didn't shoot the 10-pointer, I could have been full draw, and those 4 bucks bust me because they were going to bust me as soon as they got past me, and them freeze on a dime and him freeze staring at me.
Yep.
And I'd have walked away empty. So the experience of it was insane. Like,
and plus, like you said, it makes
$15 in 3 days. That's insane.
It makes an absolutely insane story to tell anyone. Like, and the fact that you were able to record some of it is even better because it's like you didn't have any camera stuff up. You barely even got your bow up in time. Like it was like everything happened for a reason. Like I always believe that is like everything happens for a reason. Now that 8 and that 10 gonna be even bigger next year.
Yeah. Well, my buddy missed one of them.
Ah.
There was another 8-pointer in there that I would have. He's real wide. I took him in there and he shot right over his back like a day ago, like Saturday night. I was like, hey, we got to kill. Let's go. We went in there and buddy shot right over him.
Yeah. I mean, but I think like everything happens for a reason. Like I've always believed that, like, I always tell my wife that, like, everything happens for a reason. It's just.
Well, and I have really good confidence, especially like with those other bucks. They're in an area that now I this whole year I was a step behind. So next year I'm going to be looking for them before they get there.
Yep.
And so I have a, good opportunity at getting on them. Even if I don't get to hunt early season, they made it through early season this year. And I remember the pressure that was there and the pressure that was in there during November. So, I mean, I didn't get my first picture of them until December 7th.
Yeah.
So I know they're in an area they know how to work through to stay safe. And from what I figured out and how they're doing it, they have a very, really, really good chance. A doe's going to get them killed at most.
Oh, absolutely. So what would you say is the biggest thing you took away from that one? Because you had that, not necessarily a failure or anything like that, but like you had something happen like that, and there's something probably going to learn from that.
I learned a lot of lessons, and not particularly anything that would have contributed to a different outcome. I just learned that I think the biggest lesson that I learned of hunting these deer like in this spot, especially in that exact encounter, this buck walked through an opening out of the bedding area that I thought he would, and at 3:15 in the afternoon. And he was a giant buck, but giant bucks don't leave the thickets. You know what I mean? Like, so I've learned the biggest takeaway from that whole hunting experience from, the beginning of getting pictures of the buck to hunting him down is if you can figure out a way to get in there where they think you're not in there, they're shocked when they look up and you're there. Like they're going to get up and they're going to act like private land deer is what they're going to do. They're going to get up and they're going to work an edge. They're going to stay safe, but they're going to work with the wind in their favor, and they're going to do normal deer activity. They're not like some spook that, is only walks with the wind in his face and is only going to leave the thicket at night. And if they didn't hear or see anybody come in there and you tricked them, however your access was, you have a really good chance of that deer doing something. They don't do anything stupid, but you catch them off guard.
Yep.
And I've had that. Like I said, those bucks, I mean, they wanted to get to where they wanted to get, and there were 7 of them, and they were trying to get by me, and I caught them off guard. They didn't believe I was in there, and until their nose said I was in there, I mean, I had one at 5 yards look straight up at me. He didn't really know what I was, but the other deer was freaking out, so he ran back with him, and he ended up turning right back around and coming in. And that was the one I was like, like he wouldn't leave me alone.
Tired of seeing your ass.
Like, leave me alone.
He's a good buck. But he'll be a damn good deer next year too. So,
well, that sounds like you have a lot of good deer there.
Yeah, and that's a good thing too. That'll hopefully keep some of those big bucks alive. Is some of these Forkies and good little basket rack 8-pointers are going to make it, and there'll be good 130-inch deer that guys will probably take. And why wouldn't you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
absolutely, man. Well, you had a amazing season, and
it was crazy,
dude. It amazing, from a triple main beam to a gear tie to then an accidental buck. I mean, come on.
Right.
Freaking amazing season. Hey, we got 2 buck down in Illinois, like that on public. Freaking killer, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I worked my butt off for it. So it's nice. Yeah, it's nice when it finally comes together.
Yes.
A lot of years of that, like, doubting yourself, and the big takeaway too is for guys that, like, you're not motivated or tired or whatever. Like, I felt the same way, and I shot on both occasions that I shot bucks. I felt like I was in the wrong spot. I wasn't really sure. Like, I'd scouted it, but didn't know for sure. Like, I'm burnt out, and you're like they always say, your season can change in seconds.
Dude, yeah, 100%. I really appreciate you coming on here. Where can people follow you at one more time? And go watch your videos, all that kind of good stuff.
So YouTube, go to The Rise Hunt. We do a web series on there that I have a segment in every year moving forward, and I do, content for them. And then my personal stuff is Lethal Nick on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And I'm trying to grow the YouTube. The YouTube stuff's going to be more like not my cinematic, real cool, like done production videos. It's more vlogging and kind of podcast stuff. Like, I get guys ask me about equipment or, all the time on Instagram, and it's hard to answer some of that stuff on the smaller stuff. So I'm really trying to build that YouTube so it can really help me do what I do, to be honest. So definitely go check that out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Appreciate you coming on here, dude.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man. I love talking deer. I'll talk for hours.
Yeah.